Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen dumps her boyfriend because he fell asleep. My Karen girlfriend dumped me for falling asleep in the wrong place. My girlfriend, Celine, who's 20, and I, 21 male, have been dating for about 7 months now, but I had feelings for her for like 3 years beforehand. I have also been sharing a flat with 2 other girls and 1 other guy. One of the girls is Kaya, and we're pretty good friends. As it just so happens, Celine's ex cheated on her with Kaya. Kaya hadn't known they were together at the time, so when I first brought Celine over to my place earlier into our relationship, she told me about what had happened. I realized then that things would be messy, and I asked Celine if this was a deal breaker for her, but she said she wasn't sure, as she was aware that Kaya didn't realize she was facilitating cheating. The next day, Celine said that she thought it over and that she held no resentment towards Kaya, but was insecure about herself and felt uneasy that we lived in the same house. We both agreed to continue with the relationship and set our boundaries. One of them was that Kaya and I won't sleep over in each other's rooms anymore. We used to have movie nights on Fridays. Kaya's room was the only room with a TV in my flat, and I'd sometimes fall asleep in her room during movie nights. Everything was platonic, and I told Celine about this. Let's move to the present time, where our relationship is like a fairy tale. Being with Celine is pretty awesome, but my exams are coming up soon, and because I'm horribly underprepared, I need to lock in. So I told Celine I would have to be a bit selfish and wouldn't be able to spend time with her or have much communication until they're done. For the past 3 weeks, my life has been wake up, spend the entire day and night at the library, then come home to sleep for 5 or 6 hours, then go study again. It's a horrible routine and I feel like a zombie, but I have too much content to catch up on and not enough time. I must also admit that I've not been in contact with Celine all that often. We only talked twice on FaceTime and texted very little. She tried initiating, but I had my phone shut off while studying, and I only replied when I left the library. On our second call, she said she felt neglected, and it was really starting to get to her, and she wanted to spend some time together. I apologized, told her I missed her too, and that she could come over tonight to spend the night. But she came about an hour later than she was supposed to, and I had fallen asleep by then. She still stayed the night, but the next morning, I felt that she was upset I fell asleep. Then I got really sick 3 days ago. I threw up at the library and asked Kaya to come pick me up. My other roommates are out of town, and Celine would have taken too long to get there. When I got into bed, I threw up all over my sheets. At this point, my memory of what happened is foggy. I was very drowsy and not thinking straight. Rather than cleaning up and setting new sheets, I texted Celine I was very sick and I had thrown up in my bed, and I asked if I could sleep over at hers. I got no reply, so I went downstairs and slept on the couch. When I woke up the next morning, I was asleep on Kaya's bed. I had no clue how I got there, but Celine came to check on me, and she walked in on me like this. This was when I woke up, and Celine was very upset. She yelled, "How could you?" And before I had the chance to say anything, she left. Kaya told me that when she saw me asleep on the couch, she offered to let me sleep on her bed instead. I have no recollection of this. I probably had taken my shirt off because I felt hot at some point during the night. She also said she slept on the couch and we didn't share the bed. I've been trying to reach out to Celine, but she blocked my number, my WhatsApp, and my Instagram. We have 2 mutual friends, but they both haven't replied to any of my texts. My fever went down yesterday night, so I went to Celine's to clarify the situation, but her roommate said she wasn't going to talk and made me leave. This whole situation just feels horrible. I love the relationship that I have, or had, with Celine, and the fact that it's probably over makes me feel so distraught. I also reflected over how I've been recently, and I realized that a lot of the blame goes on me. My exams aren't a reason to just completely shut myself out of my relationship, and I need to work on being able to juggle life and studies at the same time. Other than her finding me asleep on Kaya's bed, she's probably been really frustrated with me over these past 3 weeks of me not being in contact. It's painful knowing I made a very unnecessary decision, and had I put in more effort, I wouldn't have cost me the greatest person in my life. You spoke with your girlfriend twice in 3 weeks? That's not how relationships work, buddy. This girl already hooked up with her last boyfriend. The fact she even decided she could deal with you guys living together is huge. Then you tell her you have platonic movie nights that end up with you guys sleeping together in her room. At that point, I would have left, but she still asked for a simple boundary. You hardly talk to her or make time for her for weeks. A simple text or a phone call is very easy, and at that point, I would assume something was up. Then she literally finds you in the other girl's bed. You're either lying and have interest in that girl, or you don't actually care about your girlfriend. I'd be out. Update. Since I'm such a horrible person, most of you will be happy to know that we're no longer together. My friendship ended because I won't pay for someone to go on a trip. Realizing that I had a leech as a friend and I'm disappointed in myself. Lori always wants to participate but never contributes. And most of the time, it never really bothered me. Our group of 6 always contributed extra for things like concerts, weekend trips, and so on. In high school, it was because Lori came from a poor family and wasn't able to get a job due to having to watch her 4 younger siblings. Then in college, it was because she couldn't work and maintain her grades without losing her scholarship. Now she can't contribute anything because she's struggling financially and didn't have the means to save anything. And I got upset, admittedly, because she spends her money in crappy ways. We've been planning this trip for 4 years. I know it's awful to look at what someone has and judge their finances, but Lori is the same person who had no expenses during the lockdown because she was living with me and my great-grandmother. She didn't pay for groceries, wasn't charged rent, still had her job, was getting hazard pay. Lori waited until it came time to start paying for everything to say she didn't have it. She said this to me one-on-one. While we were out shopping for the trip, her idea. Lori wanted to go to stores that weren't cheap. I asked if she was sure, and she claimed she wanted to treat herself. She spent just over $1,300, and then we go to lunch, and she has the nerve to tell me she can't afford the trip, a whopping $2,683 per person for 15 days. Of course I said no, and guess what? She brings in the rest of the group 2 days later, and all of them are on board with splitting her expenses. Translation, they would cover half the costs among them, and I'd be stuck with the other half because I make the most money. And saying no means I'm a jerk. And me calling out Lori for her behavior was too harsh and uncalled for. They claimed that she deserved to feel good about herself after the life she's had, like I wasn't raised by my grandparents and ignored by my parents in favor of their stepkids, wasn't working through high school and maintaining my grades to be valedictorian, like I wasn't struggling until I got a good internship because I had to work. Yeah, I'm financially secure now, but why the heck should Lori be rewarded for bad spending habits? They're all upset now because I told them I'd go on a trip by myself. They didn't think I'd cancel it and go through with booking a trip for myself. It's costing me more, but forget them. They want Lori to go on a trip, they can plan one and take her without me involved. What kind of mental hold does she have on you folks? She has some type of Professor X type powers. What does she bring to the group that allows her to mooch off of everyone? That's crazy. OP. It's legitimately just pity at this point. All of them focus heavily on how she had an awful life growing up, which I'm not going to dispute. Lori's life sucked, and the only way she was able to do anything with us was if my grandparents watched her siblings. But can she seriously use that as an excuse to be so irresponsible for the rest of her life? Seriously, she blew half the cost of the trip in my face. That's an expensive leech. Glad you finally called her out. Probably should have happened a long time ago. Are the other people aware that the moment she asked, well, demanded really, that you pay for her trip, she just spent half of that trip's cost on random stuff a few hours prior? If not, that's info they need. If they don't care about that, they weren't really your friends to begin with. If you look back at the group dynamic, are you the one who usually ends up paying a bigger share just because you have a better paying job? Or did the others contribute equally and Lori was the only leech? OP. At first, Lori was the only leech, but the ongoing text argument, yeah, I've been the one footing a larger share. It wasn't obvious at first, but what's expected of me as a friend is disproportionate to what's expected of them. Update. Seriously, I get called mean, selfish, cruel, and a bunch of other insults for not bankrolling an idiot's life, decide to cut contact and end the friendship, and now they want to make up? Lori, the primary leech, has horrible spending habits. She'll blow her money on designer clothing and shoes and then ask you to cover her expenses for trips. And the more I think about how much money I've wasted on her over the years, the angrier I become. Lori has apparently burned more bridges in the week or so I've been no contact. They apparently decided that they can't afford to bring Lori on a similar trip to what I had originally planned for us. It was 15 days split between Portugal, Spain, and Italy. One of the group, Jenna, went to my grandpa because she couldn't get in contact with me. I had blocked all of them, mainly because I got sick of arguing. Grandpa told her now wasn't a good time, though refused to give her any details. She came back 4 days in a row until he relented. He called me for her and gave me the gist of things before I told him to send her to the coffee shop I was at, a post for another day because I'm still processing my earlier meeting and I know I'll need to vent about it. The meeting with Jenna went horribly. She started by telling me the group had planned a new trip and she knows I'm mad, but canceling on them and then not sharing the agency was really cruel. They found an agency to travel through, but to keep the time they had off from work means they have to pay more. Cheapest they could get was $4,000 a person. I didn't respond, mainly because, yes, she continued to blame me for their crap like it wasn't their fault I canceled and stopped talking to them. When I told her that it was their fault, Jenna agreed that it was. She revealed that they tried to talk Lori into returning everything she bought so that she could contribute to her part. In her words, they can't afford half the things I can. Jenna personally believes that Lori's need for designer things is because of me. I didn't snap immediately at this, and I let her ramble about it. I know you don't notice it, but you're always wearing nice things and spending money on nice places. You're always buying expensive makeup, getting your nails and hair done. She just wants that lifestyle too, and it's like you're rubbing it in her face. All of us are at fault. And yes, I do spend my money on those things. But as I told Lori and now Jenna, I can afford that lifestyle. I budget for those things. I thrift shop, and a good number of my nice things are secondhand. Yes, I put a lot of effort into my appearance, but I also live below my means. I live in the house my great-grandmother owns outright and pay utilities, shop in bulk and local markets for food, and I have good insurance that covers grandma's medical expenses. I, again, thrift for my nicer things, or I save for them, or wait for a sale. I have enough in my lost my job savings account to last a year. Yes, I have a savings account just for that, and I continue to add to it from every paycheck. Everyone that knows me is aware of how I can afford what I can afford. I don't make an effort to hide this. However, it's not my fault Lori refuses to be smart with her spending. I said all of this to Jenna, and she had the nerve to cry. She said not everyone can have that type of security, and unlike me, they can't afford a last-minute trip, and Lori especially couldn't. I cut her off when she started on Lori's sad childhood, and I told her to just let it be. I told her she was fixated on my finances and lifestyle, but that wasn't my fault. She and the rest of the group all have decent careers. They all had better safety nets than I did, and it made them complacent. I didn't have that. Yes, I was middle class growing up, but I wasn't as well off as them. Yes, I had a grandpa who would spoil me, but it wasn't to the extent they think. I still drive his old Impala. I was the first in our friend group to get a car, right? Because his eyesight was going bad. He couldn't drive me around like their parents could. And don't get me started on college itself. Lori had a financial aid packet because she was poor. Jenna and the rest had family that could pay off their tuition and living costs, and I got barely anything aid-wise and had to work because my grandparents couldn't afford it, and my parents refused to acknowledge me. If I hadn't landed an internship turned career that paid off my education, I'd still be in debt. Jenna kept crying, and I told her to stop, that I'm sick of them and their crying. I threw her getting cut off by her parents in her face, told her that it was because she's a financial leech just like Lori, and that was her problem. I'm sick of them acting like I'm the problem, and I was done listening to her efforts to villainize me. Rather than whining, maybe she should think about why her parents cut her off, and why I am also cutting her off, because she likes to blame everyone and everything for her failures. I shouldn't have said it, but I did. You got kicked out for stealing someone's essay. You wasted their money, and I darn sure won't let you waste mine. Grow up, and don't ever bother my family again. Then I left her there crying. Not my finest moment, but seriously, what's wrong with people? Am I the jerk for not offering support to my dad's wife and laughing at her when she asked for it? My dad's wife found out 6 weeks ago that he's been cheating on her for years. They have 3 kids together, and she had no idea he was cheating. His wife, who I'll call Anne for this post, was my dad's affair partner when he was married to my mom. I was like 8 when we found out, and how that happened was my dad brought Anne over to pick up his stuff because he wanted to move in with her. Neither of them gave a hoot that I was there. A few weeks later, my mom passed in an accident, and I moved in with my dad and Anne. But I didn't look at either of them in a positive light. I still don't, and I'm 17 now. Anne and I butted heads a lot over the years. She would talk about deserving more respect, and I told her she was just the lady my dad cheated on mom with, and she'd never be more than that in my eyes. I told her I didn't respect her as a person or as a supposed family member. Dad tried to get me to see him more positively at first, but when he realized I'd ask the big questions like why he did that to my mom and me, he stopped trying. I always assumed he found a new mistress, but didn't have proof until a year and a half ago when I saw him with another woman. I said nothing, and I carried on waiting for the day she found out. There were times I wanted to rub it into her face so bad, but I didn't. I was laughing at her behind her back, and I'll admit that. When Anne found out, she kicked Dad out and I moved out with him. This was seen as a controversial choice because Anne wanted me to stay, and since everything went down, Anne has wanted me to visit her and wanted me to be with her and Dad's kids. I'm not close to the kids and don't really care about having a relationship with them. Last week, Dad brought me by Anne's place to pick up more of his and our stuff. Anne's family were there, and Anne and her family were scolding me for choosing Dad over Anne and saying Anne deserved my support, that they couldn't believe I'd pick Dad's side over hers. I said I picked neither side, but Anne means nothing to me, so I'm not going to do crap for her. Anne's mom told me Anne was a victim. I told them she cheated with a married man and shouldn't be shocked that he'd do the same to her because she's nothing special. They kept engaging with me, and my dad was taking his sweet time. Anne decided to talk to me one-on-one and asked me to stand by her and support her and help her give the kids a good life and show that we're still a family. I laughed in her face. Anne started to cry. Her family asked her about it, and she told them that I had laughed. They called me disgusting and cruel and said that I should be ashamed of treating someone in my family like that. Anne's sister sent me a few DMs before I locked down my socials, but she said I should apologize to Anne and be there for her now to make up for my reaction to her. She told me to be a better man and not some pathetic kid who blames the woman for stuff. Am I the jerk? Well, you know the old saying, when a man marries his mistress, he opens up a new vacancy. It's crazy how affair partners act so shocked that a cheater cheats. If he cheated to be with you, then he'll cheat on you. You ain't special. Not the jerk. I don't know why she was so desperate for your support when you've been obvious in your dislike of her for years. It's like touching a hot stove and being shocked and upset when it burns you. Am I the jerk for refusing to attend family events on my wife's side unless she stands up for herself? My wife, 35 female, and I, 36 male, have been married for 4 years and we have 2 kids who are 3 and 1. My wife's parents divorced when she was a teenager and both her mom and dad have since remarried. There's a lot of competition between her mom, dad, and stepmom in terms of family time. Everything has to be equal, meaning if we spend an afternoon with her mom, then we have to do the same with her dad and stepmom. Mom and stepmom especially put a lot of pressure on my wife and guilt trip her about this. My wife has a lot of trouble standing up for herself and saying no. Before we had kids, this wasn't as big of a deal. If we had to attend 2 to 3 different Thanksgivings or Christmas gatherings, not a huge deal. I mean, it sucked, but it wasn't the end of the world. Now though, with 2 young kids, it's exhausting and I absolutely hate it. My wife and I had numerous talks about her setting boundaries about this because I'm at the end of my rope with it. The bickering and pressure is constant, and the need to keep everything equal essentially determines our entire non-work schedule. We had to attend 2 separate Easter events this spring. We're not even religious, because we went to one with her mom, so we had to do one with her dad and stepmom. After that, I told my wife I was done with this BS. I told her that she needs to stand up to her parents and start setting boundaries and saying no. I told her I won't allow her parents to continue to dictate how we live our lives. I told her if she's incapable of doing this, then I will absolutely step in and tell them off. But she begged me not to do that because she doesn't want to ruffle feathers and promised she would do better. Of course, that didn't happen. We ended up having to run around to 3 separate places on Memorial Weekend because of the same stuff. After we got home from the last stop, I told my wife I'm done with this and will now pick and choose which things I want to go to. I won't stop her from going, and I will stay home with one or both of the kids if she doesn't want to take them. But I'm done. Lo and behold, this past weekend, she was talking to her mom and 4th of July came up. My father-in-law had already invited us to his house for a pool day, and my wife told her mom about it. So, of course, we have to do something with them that weekend as well. When my wife told me about this, I told her that I will not be attending both, and I will choose if I want to attend either. My wife must have vented to her mom about this because a couple days later, I got a call from my wife's stepdad, the only sane person in this really. He told me that he completely agrees with me and that he's talked with his wife numerous times about not pressuring my wife, but she doesn't listen either. He suggested that whenever his wife pressures my wife into keeping things equal, that he and I go golfing together instead. When I told my wife about this idea, she called me a jerk and told me I'm being unsupportive. Not the jerk, but you two need to work on this to find a solution. Personally, the solution should be along the lines of telling everyone, we have 2 kids. It's just not possible to keep running around to different households for events and holidays. We're finding that we don't have time to establish our own traditions with the kids because we're trying to keep the peace between you two. With this in mind, we will be alternating holidays and choosing to skip some that we want to keep to ourselves. Should we host, invitations will be extended to everyone, and we expect a civil gathering. If you don't feel you can contribute to that environment for the sake of the kids, then please RSVP no. Thank you for understanding. Your wife calling you unsupportive just reads as she needs someone to stand up for her because she doesn't want to do it for herself. Have a talk with your wife about how exhausting this is for you. Focus on wanting to spend more quiet time with her and the kids instead of not wanting to do things with her family. Something you don't mention is your family. When do you spend time with them if you're divvying up holidays between your two gatherings you're already doing of just her family? OP. I didn't include it in my post because of the character limits, but this is a huge issue for us too. Time spent with my side of the family is drastically smaller than the amount we spend with her side. Thankfully, my parents are not insane and feel bad for my wife's situation. But I do miss spending extended time with them over holidays rather than rushing from place to see everybody. Am I the jerk for embarrassing my parents for forgetting my birthday? I, 33 female, just had my birthday last week. The only problem is that no one in my family remembered. My maternal grandfather passed away about a month ago, and my entire family, mom, dad, and 2 younger brothers, flew back to my mother's home country for the funeral. I unfortunately could not go, as I've only recently started a new job. I wasn't particularly close to my grandfather, so I wasn't too upset about staying behind. My family was gone for a total of 22 days, and we FaceTimed and stayed in constant communication during their trip. I think it's great that my mom got to reconnect with family and that my brothers got a chance to meet everyone. They got back last Wednesday and have been readjusting due to jet lag since then, understandably. My birthday was last Friday, 2 days after they got back. To be honest, I wasn't expecting more than birthday wishes from everyone, but the day passed without a word from anyone. Was I annoyed? Sure, but I wasn't too upset. I'm not the biggest birthday person. I ended up having a nice birthday dinner with my boyfriend and a few friends. All heck broke loose Saturday afternoon when I got a really angry phone call from my dad. I guess my boyfriend did a special Instagram post for me, and my brother saw it and showed my parents. I had no idea he did this, as he isn't a big poster. Anyway, I could hear my mom crying in the background while my dad laid into me, saying that they were sorry they forgot, but not saying anything and then posting about it online was passive-aggressive and mean. I told him that I wasn't upset and that I didn't think a 33rd birthday was that big of a deal anyway. He said a few more things before abruptly ending the call. I didn't hear back from my family the rest of the weekend. Today, Monday, I woke up to a bunch of notifications. I guess my mom did a Facebook post talking about ungrateful kids and how I ruined their surprise party for me and tagged me. My extended family seemed to agree that I was a jerk. I've tried calling my mom, but she didn't answer, so I posted my own reply and said, "You guys forgot, and no one wished me a happy birthday, unless you count Dad calling and yelling at me. Both of my parents have been calling all morning, but I don't want to take their calls yet. Am I the jerk?" Update. After everything that happened yesterday, I told my boyfriend about the Facebook thing, and he agreed that I should just not deal with it for the day. I turned my phone off and just chilled out. Around 6 p.m., my boyfriend got a text from my brothers asking if they could come by because they wanted to see me and bring me the candy they brought back for me. I agreed and they came over, along with my parents. At this point, I was annoyed to see my parents, but we let everyone in. My boyfriend made sure I was all right and took my brothers out back so I could be alone with my parents. My mom started crying immediately and sobbed out an "I'm sorry." I don't know about you, but seeing my mom cry started to make me cry. My dad then explained what happened. Apparently, they absolutely forgot about my birthday. Again, understandable. My paternal aunt had come over on Saturday to see my parents. It's worth noting that she does not like my mom for whatever reason. Since he's been around for the last 4 years, my boyfriend follows my brothers and a few of my cousins and vice versa. My cousins saw the post, showed my aunt, and she asked my mom how my birthday went. Side note, my extended family did reach out to wish me a happy birthday. They just didn't know my family forgot. I guess my mom was caught out, and my aunt went in on her for being a bad mother and all of that, and saying at least I have my boyfriend. My dad got upset, told my aunt to leave, and said they already had something planned. They didn't. That's when he called me. They never saw the post, and I was wrong thinking my brothers showed them. My dad said he felt awful for yelling and then he apologized, but explained that he hated seeing his wife so upset. They took the weekend to cool down, but as many of you guessed, my mom tried to save face on Facebook. She explained that she didn't think I would see it since I'm not usually on. What she didn't realize is that when she typed my name in the post, my username populated, so it tagged me. She was shocked and embarrassed when I responded and started getting calls and texts from the extended family. She came clean to my dad about it, and that's when they tried calling, but I wouldn't answer. My mom looked very distraught, and I just told her that everything was okay and that I'm sorry that I responded the way I did. It's evident that she's taking her father's passing extremely hard, and I don't want to pile more onto her. Now's not the time. My dad said it was a few days late, but he'd love to order pizza and just hang out. I agreed. My boyfriend and brothers came inside, and we spent a few hours listening to stories about my grandfather and my mom's childhood. It's definitely a birthday I won't forget, but I guess all's well that ends well. I would also like to point out that we do not like my dad's sister. She's an awful person, but my cousins are amazing, so my dad tolerates her. My mom can usually handle herself around my aunt, but she's in a really vulnerable state, which is how this escalated. I'll probably talk to her about it again, just not anytime soon. Not saying you should cut your parents off by any means, but this is the most horrible apology. Your father called and screamed at you because he forgot your birthday. Your mother made up a fake party and called you an ungrateful brat on the internet, thinking you'd never see it, so that you look like the bad guy. Their insults were incredibly public and nasty, and their apology was secretive. I'd ask for an apology as public as the insult. I'm sure they're embarrassed. They should be. Sure, your mom's father passed, but that's no excuse for dad to forget. And if they had forgotten or been off on the date because of jet lag, that would have been one thing. That's not what happened though. Karen betrays me and goes after my ex-boyfriend, even though she knows how in love with him I still am. I'm 32, female, and my ex-boyfriend is male, 35. We broke up about 5 months ago after 4 years together. He's the most amazing guy, and I love him so much. These past few months have been the worst of my life. He's very handsome and successful, and rich, which is relevant. I'm sure he will not have any problems getting into a new relationship. He broke up with me because we don't want the same things in life. He wants to have kids and have a family, but I don't. I think we stayed together for so long, even though we knew we wanted different things. We probably kind of thought we would change or change each other, and that love is all that mattered. I still love him, but I don't know if he still loves me. When we broke up, I asked for a clean break. That means no contact because I needed to get over him. My friends know all of this, and they know how much I still love him. One of my best friends, who's 28, jokingly said that he was now up for grabs a month after we broke up. I ignored her. I thought it was a bad joke. She's very beautiful, and she basically can get whoever she wants. She's always said that she's never been rejected before, and I believe her. I know my ex didn't really like her because she wants a rich guy and because she's had a lot of plastic surgery done. Last time we had dinner, she brought up wanting to date him, and one of my other friends said that we didn't do that to each other. She laughed it off and said, "Well, you can try, but you are not his type." She said that she's never been rejected before, and this is where I might have been the jerk. I told her he didn't like greedy girls with lip injections and plastic surgery. She started crying, telling me now she won't feel bad whenever she takes him because I'm a jerk. My friend sided with her on that one. I waited until I was in my car to start crying. I don't think I'm the jerk. She knows I still love him and I'm not over him. Couldn't she at least wait? I know she's panicking because she kept saying that he won't be single for long. I don't know. Tell me if I should apologize. Update. I talked to a mutual friend today. My former best friend has asked my ex for dinner about 2 weeks ago, the same week we had our fight. She took him to one of my favorite restaurants that she knows we both loved. Anyway, after the dinner, he stopped answering her calls and texts. I don't know what happened there and why he agreed to having dinner with her, and I can't help but cry and feel hurt. I know this is juvenile, and I need to let it go, but I couldn't stop crying anyway. But I need to work on myself and move on. I love him and I want him to be happy. I can't start crying at the mere thought of him moving on. My former best friend is angry with me and has told our mutual friends that I have forbidden him from seeing her, and that's why he didn't text her back or answer her calls. I said that this wasn't true and that I haven't had any contact with him since I moved out. I don't know if our friends believe me or her. I feel like I don't have the energy to care if they do or not. When everything settles down and everyone moves on, the ones that care about me will stay in my life. The rest, well, they're not worth being sad about losing. Not the jerk. She was disrespectful for those comments. Don't apologize because she isn't your friend. OP. I don't think she wants me anymore as a friend. If she ends up with him, she'll probably not want to be friends anymore. And if they don't, she will always think of my comment as the reason. She doesn't sound like a friend since she's been waiting to date him. If anything, she had been staying close to you just to have access to him. You need to make a clean break from her too. And how shallow is she that she thinks that her looks alone will be an equivalent to everything that you meant and still mean to your ex? Also, you need to make sure that you truly want a clean break with your ex. You can't go back and forth calling dibs on him. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her friend? Please let us know. Friends don't date friends' exes. Don't at me, bruh. I keyed someone's car today because they parked poorly. Today, I got the most irrationally mad that I've been in a while. A friend ruined a concert for me last night. This morning, I woke up with a killer headache. I was running late for work and my belt broke when I went to pull on it. A busy intersection on the way to work was choked down to one lane because of construction, so it took like 10 minutes to get through. And when I was waiting for the light, some jerk in a lifted pickup truck with a vanity license plate with something along the lines of "Monster" on it. That's not what it said verbatim, but the same idea. They were proud jerks. Forced its way in front of a car in front of me, making me miss another light cycle. When I finally got to work, the parking lot was full, and I made my way to what appeared to be an open spot somewhere in the middle of it. But when I got there, I found that the car parked in one of the spots next to it was needlessly overlapping the line by about 2 feet. It clearly wasn't a case of the car next to them parking poorly and then pulling away, leaving them to look like jerks. No, they clearly turned into this parking space from the wrong direction and did nothing to straighten their car to fit in the spot. The spot that they were bleeding over into was on the driver's side, so it was clear when they left the vehicle that they were parked poorly and they still left it. Anyway, I had parked on the far corner of the parking lot, around 100 yards further. Even though 100 yards isn't far and I could have written it off, at that point I was blind with anger and was honestly considering going home because my headache was insane and I was worried that I'd come in too hot and get myself in trouble. I chose not to do that though. Walking to the front of the store, I had to pass the vehicle that had been parked poorly, and impulsively I grabbed my keys from my pocket and dragged them as hard as I could across the entire back of the car as I walked by. I instantly realized how messed up that was and started regretting it. I walked straight back to the bathrooms in the store and I hid there for like 10 minutes to stop seeing red and then started my shift as if nothing had happened. The day went on as normal and nothing came of it. I know the cameras don't really cover that part of the parking lot, and I did it in a way that I don't think was obvious, so I don't think it will ever come back to me. But I do feel bad about it. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.